It's wonderful to see you again, Paula, especially in these beautiful hallowed halls.
I'm blessed to come to work every day to help to care for this magnificent place, this Wahipana, sacred special place, to not only our Hawaiian people, our Lahui, but to many, many others as well. It's been tough. The pandemic has made it really tough. But we really onipa'a and persevere, knowing that the bigger picture is making sure that this is standing and we're sharing this story for generations to come.
You know, not being Native Hawaiian, but understanding the history of Hawaii, when I drive by this building and this property, I feel challenged about what I'm doing in the future to not only preserve the palace, but also to take the lessons from the past and move them forward. In your role here at the palace, how are you helping people to remember?
There are a number of things that we're doing. One, we let the people know how vulnerable this building is. Mm-hmm. It is this old house, right? 140 years old this year was when they opened the doors to ʻIolani Palace. And it needs a lot of work. But also it's the stories that we tell. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people come here and think of the overthrow first and foremost. But when you walk in here and you meet these people who are on the wall, it tells you the dynamic and positive and beautiful history of a sovereign Hawaiian kingdom and what our ali'i did that was so much different than any other royalty around the world and how they cared for their people. And so we also celebrate, we celebrate Kamehameha III, started education,
right?
Started the fire department, so many things, right? We also celebrate Kalakaua. We look at these lights here, and it was electric lights 4 years before the White House. We try to celebrate that history. He was really a Renaissance man. He had one foot firmly planted in who he came from, bringing back hula, bringing back hale nawa, bringing back the societies, the myths and legends. But he also had one foot firmly planted in the future. And it was always looking for what was going to be better for his people. I always hear people who say, well, if Hawaii wasn't part of the United States, you could just say goodbye to your cell phone. I think we would have had a cell phone before anyone else because he was that dynamic. And that was our people. At one point during Kalakaua's reign, we were at a nearly 100% literacy rate, highest in the world. And so we really need to celebrate who we were, who we are today, and who we can be in the future, but also remembering the overthrow and the things that happened and pivotal moments that happened right here, the throne room where the Ōlelo was set on trial following that counter-revolution and then taken upstairs and imprisoned for 8 months. And so it's not only the sad things, but it's also the exciting and beautiful things that were happening here in Hawaii. This kingdom was phenomenal.
And what I appreciate about what you're sharing at the moment is it is the present as well as the past and the future that we're talking about. When I look at the artwork that's collected here, the relationship with the international community it's unheard of now even. How do you see the palace moving forward?
So a big project that we're working on that you won't see for another 2 years or so is our galleries in the basement area. Because we have a lot of people that come here and it's not only visitors. And I think it's very important that we're open for visitors because this may be the only chance we have to tell our story. They may not get beyond here. The rest might just be your usual, vacation fare. So I think it's super important. But it's also our Lahui and other residents that come through and children that come through. People come in and say, what led to this building being built?
Right.
Like, what was up with this? It's so beautiful for 1882, right? And what happened after the overthrow in 1893? Not only to this building, but to our people. And so our downstairs galleries that we're working on right now will help to touch on Hawaii history. And so it's, what led up through Kamehameha, Ekahi, uniting the islands, and then going into a constitutional monarchy later, and then the bayonet constitution, and then the overthrow, and then what happened in the overthrow. We had the resistance by the Royal Hawaiian Band, and it's telling the story through the people. And then it picks up after all of that. And we have a whole section that talks about, as a sovereign kingdom, who we were in touch with. Treaties with over 24 countries, offices, nearly 130 worldwide, including South Africa. We, like you said, we were spread out all over the place. And Kalakaua's trip around the world as the first monarch to do so, where he visited and the relationships that he built, and all of them have built over the years. And then we take it through to the sovereignty movement of today.
And this is the Pico, actually, right? Of not just Honolulu, but of the Hawaiian culture. How might other agencies, other organizations, the Department of Education, even independent schools, how might they be involved in sharing the messages that you're also explaining?
Well, we have school tours, which unfortunately, the pandemic put a stop to. And we're working with the schools to do that, to try to help them get transportation to come here and so forth. We're working on 7 new dynamic tours that actually are more focused on ages instead of like one tour that you kind of change out with whoever comes in. And it's all the way from pre-kindergarten on who are these people? What is a kahili? What is a sign of power in Hawaii? What is a pulo'ulo'u? And so forth, all the way up to kingdom diplomacy. And each one of them will have an activity that will help them reinforce what they learned, making their own royal order, solving problems as a diplomat, and so forth. So I think that's an important part of what we're hoping to engage, not only DOE, but Hawaii Independent Schools as well. We're also hoping to work with the University of Hawaii on some issues as well.
I'm going to encourage you to consider working with the legislature. Because what you're speaking about it's who we are here. And I believe that as they begin to understand who we were, who we are, then we'll have a better sense of moving forward. For the future, what do you envision?
The legislature. We begin to build a relationship with the legislature this year, receiving operational funding for the first time since 1998, letting them know not only the mo'okuhau or the genealogy of this precious place to the Lahui and to Hawaiians, but also the legislative background. After the overthrow, this was the provisional, the republic, the territory, and the first 10 years of statehood right here. The throne room is where the House of Representatives sat. Right. And Martin Luther King Jr. spoke to them in that room. And the dining room is where the Senate sat. So it's reminding them that this is an important place for many different reasons, and that we do need some assistance. Also rebuilding our relationships with the ali'i trusts and the different organizations so that we can all come together. And then also reminding people that something as simple as making a donation or becoming a friend of ʻIolani Palace or bringing your family here is really important as well. Because you want people to feel connected and not just drive by and shed a tear or, so many people do. When I took over, they're like, oh, I haven't been here since I was like in 4th grade. I don't want to hear that anymore. You really need to come and see it.
Well, and you use the word connected, connection. As we close our conversation for today, the connections are what not only will give the funding and also the understanding, but the connection with the world.
That's kind of our long-range goal as well. The pandemic kind of slowed it down. I like to try to get things done. And I realize it's going to take time. But we've started to reach out to the countries that we had treaties with, not only to reestablish just the initial relationship, but to have them share what they know about the relationship we had. And it's really interesting. You'll have in Switzerland, we had a docent go there. They were able to find documents of Kalakaua in Switzerland, just so we can bring to light this major connection on a worldwide level that we had and we could continue to have.
And that Hawaii was a leader.
Hawaii was a leader. We were, and that was one reason why he built this. The ʻIolani Palace that was here before was a beautiful wooden structure. It was huge and it was beautiful. But like many older structures, the termites got to it. And so when he built this, he really wanted this to serve as an example to the world that the Hawaiian kingdom was modern, educated, and well respected. And I think when you look at it and you learn the history, you realize that.
Well, thank you so much for reminding us about the significance of this place and who we are. And it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. So nice to see you again, too. So happy that you came here.
Thank you. You've just had the opportunity to meet Paula Akana, Executive Director for ʻIolani Palace.